Hey guys, what's up? It's Emily. Welcome back to my channel. We're back with the book content today. It is our January reading wrap up. I feel like January, usually I say the opposite. I feel like January has been the longest month ever. I feel like January always feels so long. Right now it's January 30th and I still can't believe there's still 2 days left in this month. I had a pretty good reading month because I feel like I still read as much as I want to read. I read 10 books this month, but I felt like I did it more in moderation. There were days where I was just like, you know what, I want to watch TV tonight, so I'm going to do that and not feel the pressure to read. I didn't feel the pressure to listen to audiobooks every single second I had that I could. There was just something really nice about that. There was something more intentional about the books that I'm reading. You know, I didn't love every single book that I read. I felt like my relationship to reading was a little more healthy this month than it was kind of last year, where I was just trying to read as much as I can. And my goal for this year is still 100 books, but I think if I kind of keep up with this relationship to reading, it will feel better, if that makes sense. I also did a 12-hour reading challenge. I took one day and I just read, and I read 3 books that day, so that was also nice. It kind of created more space for me during the week to take a little time off, if that makes sense. Anyway, so I wanted to start with the first book of the year, which was a Christmas book, because I took the last 2 months of December off of reading. I just didn't want to miss out on any Christmas reads. So I read 2 Christmas reads to start off the year, and I just wish I hadn't. Honestly, it was fine. But in January, it's you don't need that. Who cares anymore? We've moved on. It's the new year. Whatever. The first book I read was The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. This is by Ali Carter. First of all, I do love the cover, I have to say. So it's about these 2 writers who are invited to this kind of mysterious, I think it's a Christmas house party in England. And it turns out that the main character, Maggie, she is a huge fan of this one author called Eleanor. And it turns out that this place that they all have been invited to on this mysterious sort of invitation is at Eleanor's house. And she has something really fun planned. And then the next day she's gone. She has disappeared. What's going on? Has Eleanor kind of planned this? Am I being tested? That kind of a thing. The guy she's there with, the other writer, is kind of her arch nemesis. So we get kind of an enemies to lovers type thing. What's cool about this is it's an enemies to lovers. There is romance, and it's also kind of a mystery thriller, but in a fun way. I didn't love this, if I'm being honest. I gave it 2.5 stars. I wasn't really invested in the characters. I didn't feel connected to them in any way. But, it was fine. I'd probably skip it. So the next book I read is the 3rd book in the Dream Harbor series called The Christmas Tree Farm by Laura Gilmore. So you have the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, you have the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, and then you have the Christmas Tree Farm. This one is about Kira, who recently moved to Dream Harbor. She bought this Christmas tree farm with her entire trust fund and has no idea how to run a business or anything about Christmas trees or anything about anything. She's full of regret. She has this twin sister who I think recently moved to Denmark with her husband, and so she's just feeling nothing is worth it anymore. She does not want to run this Christmas tree farm. All of the residents of Dream Harbor are we want Christmas trees. We hope this girl's okay. Can we help out? Because, we want everyone to be happy and we also want our Christmas trees. And then you have Bennett, who is Lori, I think. Whoever the girl, I don't think Lori's the author. The girl from the first book, The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, I forget her name. Is it Jeannie? I don't know. Her brother Bennett has come to visit, and he kind of has a run-in with Kira in the Christmas tree fields. He's trying to convince her to set up the farm. It's a very quick, snug, cozy read. Jean-Luc got me this book in California when we were there. I gave it 2 stars. I just did not. The Pumpkin Spice Cafe was good. The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore was okay. And this, I'm kind of over this series. Each book is the same exact thing. So I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend this to anyone. Okay, next I listened to The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. This I would definitely recommend listening to. She, the author, narrates it. She is so good at narrating it. I love her tone. I love her voice. I love the mood she creates. This book is so simple and so life-changing. I hesitate to say that about a lot of self-help books. They feel life-changing in the moment, and then after a few weeks you kind of forget about them. But this book is it has one very simple theory, and then kind of just like delves into it for an entire book. So it really like sticks with you. I feel like a lot of self-help books have a bunch of different kind of like do this, do this, do this, do this. But like the one kind of through line is like that you can't control people around you. So you kind of have to just like let them do what they're gonna do in a variety of different ways. It honestly is so liberating, like the way that she writes about it. It has changed kind of my relationship to just a lot of things throughout this month since I've read the book. I think everyone would be happier if they read it. I gave it 5 stars. Like, I loved this book. I think I gave it 5 stars. If I didn't, I would like to give it 5 stars now. Yeah, I did give it 5 stars. And yeah, again, like just the way she narrates it is so like, yeah, she's so right. Like, work. I know this book is kind of in the zeitgeist now. I know it's going around. And so if you have been thinking about reading it, like this is your sign to go read it. Next is another book Jean-Luc got me for Christmas in LA, Taming 7. This is the 5th book in the Boys of Tommen series. So this follows Gibbsy and Claire. This is probably my least favorite of all of the books, but I still loved it because it's like the series is perfect. These books, they're like romances, but they're so much more. Like there's a lot of really deep, dark themes. It's YA, like it's young adult romance, I guess, but it's like, to me, it's so much more. Anyone of any age could read these books and like really feel connected to them, even though the kids are in high school. They're just so serious, and like I feel like the kids are like pretty mature because they've all had just kind of a lot of hardship in their life, and you learn a lot more about Gibbsy in this book and about his past, and I really love the exploration of his character. I think we need more character studies like this, and I just love the male sensitivity. The male sensitivity in his friendship with Johnny is just so sweet. It is the cutest thing ever. I ship their friendship so much. If you haven't read the series, definitely check the content warnings, check the trigger warnings, and if you can read it, what are you doing? You must read it right now. Yeah, Taming 7, I gave 4.5 stars, so it wasn't quite a 5 star. I feel like if it wasn't a Boys of Tommen book, I would have given it 5 stars, but just compared to the other ones, I gave it 4.5. This is still next level, but the other ones are like next level. You know what I mean? Maybe it's not a fair comparison. Maybe I should just give it 5 stars. Next, I read Definitely Better Now by Ava Robinson. This was so cute. Definitely Better Now is about this girl, Ava, who has been sober for a year. She's an alcoholic and she's been sober for a year, and it's time for her to go out dating again. Like, she is allowed to, in her sobriety and her journey with AA, like after you are in the program for a year, you can go out and you can start dating again. So she's kind of ready to do that. Yeah, it's just kind of her navigating like this new stage in her life, meeting a guy, problems with her parents. It's a romance, and it's very sweet, but it's also like rooted in a lot more than just a regular old romance. And I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really well written. I gave it 4 stars, I think. Yeah, it kind of reminded me of Ready or Not in the sense that I went like, oh, I'm not sure like if I'm gonna like this, and then I was like, oh my gosh, like this book is so good. It was about so much more than I thought it was gonna be about. It was funny. I felt connected to the character. So I think if you're looking for like a romance that's not just like a, oh, I know how this is gonna end type romance, like this is a really great book. Okay, next I read Madwoman. This book was mad slow to start out with. I was like the first like 80-90 pages, I was like, this might be a DNF for me. Like, it was on my nightstand for like 3 or 4 nights, just like at the same spot. It was hard to get into, and then this one has a nice twist at the end. I would say that all of the things that are kind of boring in the beginning have a bit of a payoff at the end. Oh yeah, I definitely got chills a lot. I don't want to say too much because like I obviously don't want to give anything away. This would be a great movie. I actually gave this 4 stars. There was a period of time I thought this was going to be like a 2.5, then it ended up being 4. It's basically about this woman that grew up in a really abusive household. Like, her dad was really abusive to her mom, and then it kind of goes back and forth between like her memories as a child and then her life now. She's married and she has 2 kids, and her husband knows nothing about her and like all of these secrets from her childhood. I don't think I should say much more. But if you're looking for like kind of a juicy character driven sort of mystery with like some twists and turns, this was a very wonderful book, and it was very satisfying to read. So don't let the first few chapters fool you. Okay, next are all of my reading challenge books. So I got Kindle Unlimited for Christmas, and I've really been using it. I think it's really great to save trees and money. So the first book I read, well, it's not the first book I read on Kindle Unlimited, but let me go to the cover page. I still want to show it, you know? The Housemaid. I don't know what took me so long to read this book. I know it's been literally everywhere, but I don't know. I just hadn't picked it up until now, and it, first of all, was a great book to read for the first book in a reading challenge. It was so quick. I think I read it in like 3.5 hours. It felt like no time at all. I gave it a 4.25, and I think the reason I gave it a 4.25 is because it was so gripping and so compelling. I'll say what it's about in a second, but the twists and the turns and kind of the plot twists, I've experienced them before, like that kind of trope of plot twist. So, and nothing was super surprising to me in this, but it was still really satisfying. If it was like a little less predictable, for me personally, and again, I've read a lot of like murder mystery type books, so maybe if I hadn't, like, this would be a 5-star read and it would have been really surprising for me, but just like my own relationship with it, I just wish it was a little less predictable, but still very, very satisfying, which I think is a testament to the writing, because if something's a little predictable and the writing's like not really gripping, then it's like, okay. But if the writing's really gripping and it's a little predictable still, it's like, oh, well, my heart rate was still up. I was still really like viscerally invested in the book. So I think that that's really awesome. So it's basically about this girl who got out of prison recently and is trying to get a job and is having a hard time because of her criminal record, and somehow this woman hires her to be this like very wealthy woman hires her to be her housemaid. The book opens, I should say, there's a murder in this house and we don't know who it is or like what's happened. And so it's kind of about, who is this woman that hired her? What's the deal? There's some kind of odd things going on in the house, like we're not too sure. I don't want to say too much more, but yeah, I think there's like 3 other books in this series, and I kind of like the way that the end of this book sets up for other books to follow. So I will definitely be continuing this, at least to the next one, and then if I like that one, I'll keep going. I definitely recommend that, especially if you're just like, if you're in a reading slump or you're trying to get into reading. The Housemaid is like such a good book to start with. Next I read, let me show you on here. Next book I read is, and this is definitely a different cover. I prefer the covers without people on them, not even because it's like spicy, but just because I think they look better. I started the Chestnut Spring series. The first book is Flawless by Elsie Silver. This was also part of my like 12-hour reading challenge. I really liked this one. I could definitely tell because I read the 2 from the Rose Hill series, and like I could tell that this is an earlier work from her. Like I do think her writing's improved a little bit, but I still really, really like this, and it went by fast. It's about this woman. Her dad is kind of like a music manager / PR person, unclear. I feel like they kind of interchange those jobs in this book, and they're not the same job, but she's basically working with him in his company, her dad. And he has this client who's this famous bull rider. The book starts where he's kind of being harassed by the paparazzi, and he makes this comment about how he doesn't like milk, but he has like a brand deal with like some milk company, and then he punches the guy in the face. So it's like a PR nightmare. The manager's daughter basically is sent to, for all intents and purposes, like babysit him the next few months to make sure that like all of the press is like being handled and like he's being perceived in a certain way, etc. It's a romance, so you can guess what happens. It was cute. I liked it a lot. And there's this thing that happens in it though, and I said this in my vlog, where like something really juicy and unexpected happens. Like I was shocked. I wanted to know about this thing, and there was no follow through, and like that I was like, this is the juicy thing that like I'm really excited about. And I don't know, like I know that the next 4 books or whatever, like in the series, are from different characters' perspectives, so like maybe we can find out and have some sort of closure about it in those books. But God, I wanted more of like these characters after this book. I felt like their story was like not their story, but like her story specifically, like I wanted some closure on. So maybe we'll get it in the next books. We'll see. Next, I read The Wedding People. This is about this woman who has been eyeing this like hotel for a very long time. She finally goes. I think she's getting a divorce. She goes there by herself, I think her husband cheated on her, and she goes there to do a very specific thing, which I'm not going to say. Everyone at this hotel, except for her, is there for a wedding, to go to a wedding. You kind of just go on this adventure with her, and I don't want to say too much more. It's a very meaningful story. It's pretty funny and satirical, I would say. I gave it 3 stars. I really liked what it was doing. Again, like, it's one of those books that I'm like, oh, I really appreciated this. There was like a disconnect for me. I don't know if it was in the style of the writing or the characters I didn't connect to as much as I wanted, or if it was just the last book I read in my reading challenge that day, so maybe I was a little burned out. But it wasn't like my absolute favorite, but I would still recommend it. I think it's a really interesting book, and it's a, an original idea, which I always really love. Give it a read. It was a big book last year, and it won Reader's Favorite Fiction on Goodreads, which is a pretty big deal. So yeah, definitely give it a read if you haven't. And then the last book I read is Beg, Borrow, or Steal, which is by Sarah Adams. This is the 3rd book. I don't know what the actual trilogy is called. It's called the When in Rome trilogy, and it starts with When in Rome. Then we go to Practice Makes Perfect. I've read both of those. And then Beg, Borrow, or Steal. The first book is Noah, and then the second book is his sister Annie, and then this 3rd book is their sister Emily. And they have one other sister named Maddie, I think. So this is basically this woman, Emily. She is the eldest of, or at least the eldest daughter, and she's a 2nd grade teacher, and she kind of has this like long-standing feud with this other 2nd grade teacher. He has come back into town. He left town. Now he's back into town. And they just have this chemistry-fueled feud between them. And, they met in college, and it's just been going on for a while. It's pretty palate cleansing, I would say. I think I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. My favorite book of the series was When in Rome. I just love the trope of famous pop star comes to small town and discovers the meaning of life. Like, that's more my thing. But this was cute. This whole series is really quick, so if you're looking for just quick little romance books, these are great. I like The Match better by Sarah Adams. I thought that was a little more interesting. That's, I think, another duology. And right now, I don't think I'm going to finish it in January. I started Onyx Storm on my Kindle here. Anyway, I hope everyone's doing okay. It's a difficult time, to say the least. Let me know what you guys read in January, how your new year of reading is holding up for you. I hope you have a wonderful week. I will see you in the next one.